Welcome to the farm.
Welcome to the farm. I'm Justin, and today we're going to do a little work on the farm truck. It's got a little bit of a brake issue, got some grinding going on, so we're going to go ahead and replace the rear pads and rotors. I believe it's coming from the back. I didn't pull the tires off and look, so we may find something else entirely. Normally I would take everything apart or take the tires off, look at it, and figure, okay, these are the parts I need. This time I didn't. I just went and got parts, so I had them whenever I had time. Today I have time, so we're going to get to it. But before we go ahead and do that, I got a turn signal that's not working, so we're going to go ahead and replace that first. So these turn signals should be pretty easy to replace. It should be just taking out these two screws. It appears the bottom one on here is broken, rusted through. Then these things should just go ahead and twist out. Bulb should just snap right in. And that should just turn right back in. And we'll go ahead and give it a test and see what happens. Looks like we're good to go.
There are two holes in the side of the truck there that the pins on the side of the turn signal lock into, and then the screws just hold it in place. With the turn signal done, we can move on to doing the brakes. First thing I need to do is chalk the front wheels to make sure the truck doesn't roll as I lift up the back, because unless you're in four-wheel drive with the transmission in park, it only locks up the back wheels, so if you lift the back wheels off the ground, the whole vehicle can roll, creating a dangerous situation.
So I'm going to start with the driver's side here, because I'm pretty sure this is the side that's got the problem. Just kind of looking through the wheel, I can see the rotors all rusty and not working correctly. And I'll show you that once I get the tire off. So let's take the tire off. And with these aftermarket rims that were on the truck when I bought it, I got to have a special socket to get it off. I like the way the rims and the tires look on the truck. They look awesome. Hate the lug nuts. So you can see, that's definitely got to be our problem. You can see metal shavings. Backside feels ground pretty good. And the front side, pretty rusty. So we'll go ahead and get this side swapped out. So the first thing I need to do is remove the two caliper bolts here. And I believe it's a T55. It doesn't fit in there really nice with all the rust. See if we can get it loose. Now I can remove the caliper. And I put that up on the spring out of the way. Don't want to leave it hanging from the hose because that can cause damage. Next, I can remove the two caliper support bolts. And those should be an 18mm. remove the bracket. And I would say that's definitely our problem. That back pad is gone.
Now I got to remove the rotor off the back. I'm going to pound around the side of the rotor here to try to break the rust loose. I'm loosely putting one of the lug nuts back on the lug, so when I pound on the back of the rotor, if for some reason the rotor decides it's just going to go, the lug nut will stop it and keep it on the hub.
So in case any of you are wondering about the coating, that is supposed to be on there, it's supposed to stay on there, and the brake wear surface will wear away, keeping the rest of the rotor protected. So I do not need to clean that off at all. Guess I'm going to pop the old pads out now. Here's the rear pad, completely gone, bare metal, and a little bit of a confession, kind of ran it a little bit like that too. I've had the parts for a while, just haven't really had time to get to it, and yeah, it's not a good thing. I can remove the old mounting hardware now, slide hardware. Obviously wasn't lubed up last time it was put together, because that last pad was stuck on there, not budging. They did not wear evenly. The outside, I don't think, was hardly touching the rotor at all. All right, I think I'm going to take a grinder and try to clean up some of these surfaces a little bit, because they are pretty rough. I did. This used to be an old plow truck that I bought from a junkyard, so it's been pretty beat up. It's really rusty from all the salting, but it is what it is. It was a decent price for the truck, and I've already gotten 4 years of use out of it, so I can't complain. It's not a daily driver. I don't drive it every day, so it is what it is. Well, I think that's about as good as I'm going to get them. They're cleaned up. I got most of the scale rust off of them, so hopefully the pad holders will slide on a little bit easier, and I'll make sure to lube those things up. Now we can put the new brackets on. They should just snap right over.
At this point, I should have realized that this wasn't correct. This mounting hardware should have snapped right on without me having to pound on it or hit it on. Things just weren't fitting together correctly. And as you'll see, I struggled after this.
Now I can take my brake lube, put a little coat on those slides, and then I can put the pads on.
This should have been sign number 2. I really struggled getting these pads in. It was just too tight. There was too much rust built up on the bracket, and it pushed the hardware out, which bound up the pads, and I was doing everything I could to get these pads on without physically hitting the braking surface. I made sure not to do that because I didn't want to damage that, but I struggled getting these pads on this bracket. Finally, I got a file out and file down the mounting surfaces of the brackets, and really I didn't file it enough, as you'll see later in the video. It still was a struggle to get the pads on. They still bound up. I couldn't move them by hand, and it was just not a good situation. But with a little perseverance, I got the pads mounted.
Alright, so I finally got the pads on. Go ahead and slip this on the rotor. Or my truck crumbling apart.
Now that I got the new pads and mounting bracket installed over the new rotor, I need to reinstall the caliper.
Okay.
In order to reinstall the caliper, I need to compress the pistons in the caliper, because as your old pads wear, they get thinner, which means the pistons come out further. So I need to push the pistons in to clear the wider pads. And in order to do that, you need to remove the cap on your brake fluid reservoir, so that when you push the pistons in, it doesn't build pressure. The fluid can just flow back in the reservoir, because it is a closed pressure system. So if the cap is on, the piston won't want to push in, it'll just create pressure in the system. And to compress the pistons, I just use one of the old brake pads and a C-clamp. There's probably better tools and easier ways to do it, but on a budget, I find it works pretty well. Now that I got the caliper pistons compressed, the caliper over the new pads, I lubed up the slide bolts. It's important to lube up the caliper slide bolts because that's what the caliper rides on. It's not bolted directly in place. It floats on those pins. And if they're not lubed, the caliper won't slide properly, giving enough braking force on your rotor. So it's really important to lube those up. Now that I got those lubed up, I can put the bolts in, tighten this thing down, and the caliper's installed.
Alright, well that's the first side done, the driver's side, hopefully the bad side, hopefully the other side will go a lot easier. I believe I replaced the caliper on the other side maybe 2 years ago because it was leaking. So hopefully that side will go a lot easier than this side did. You know, it's got a new caliper, new bracket, hopefully not as much rust. I don't know, we'll see. But we'll get over to that side and I'll catch up with you when I'm done.
So the passenger side of the truck went super easy. I think it took me 20 minutes total to break everything down and put everything else back in. Having the new mounting bracket and the new caliper made a huge difference. The hardware for the pads went on super easy. The pads went on super easy. In fact, they were so loose that if I moved the mounting bracket around, the pads would actually fall out. Is how loose they were. So the fact that that went together so easy, and the driver's side was so stiff and hard, and it was so hard for me to get those pads on, and I could not move them by hand, I decided that I needed to take that back apart and file down all those surfaces more, so I can get that hardware for the pads to sit back on the mounting brackets a little further, so the pads would end up being loose and function properly on the brakes. As I said before, those other two signs, the one of the mounting hardware not going on easy and the sign of the pads not going on easy, I should have just taken more time right then and there, filed everything down more, and got everything to fit a lot better. We're going to make up for it here now with a lot of filing. And I do mean a lot of filing. I thought about using a grinder, but I didn't want to take off too much material too quickly, and I also didn't want to damage the boots that are on this bracket where the caliper slides go in, because then that creates an opening for dirt and everything to get on the caliper slides, bind stuff up, increase wear. So I just did it slowly with files, and by the time I was done, I was able to get the pads on by hand and actually move them around with my fingers. They weren't so loose they were falling out like the other side, but they functioned significantly better than they did originally.
Alright, I think brakes are done. Back down on the ground. I'm glad I took that one back apart and filed all that stuff down. I don't know how long till it rusts back up, because again, this doesn't get driven a lot, so it's probably gonna rust back up and seize up, but whatever. I can feel better that I at least took the time to try to make it better. So all we got left to do now is go ahead, test drive it, make sure we're not grinding. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't hear any grinding when I was driving it, so I think our farm truck is back in working order, or at least as good as it can be and needs to be for the little bit we use it. Hopefully you guys found this rear brake job on this truck interesting. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. Consider subscribing. We got other stuff we'll do in the truck. We got the Case tractor we're working on. We got the Kubota tractor we do stuff with. We got animals in the farm we do stuff with. All kinds of projects coming up. So subscribe so you don't miss any of that stuff. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.